lesser masculine men are the problem in toxic masculinity.
But any man that is interested in being a masculine man needs to have other men around him.
Honor women better, honor children better, and provide better.
Building tribes, empowering tribes.
Understanding that, how magnificent women are was one of the biggest breakthroughs of my life.
And 1 out of every 4 men have no friends.
Being in relationship with women is one thing. Having all your friends be women is dangerous.
Welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Man podcast, where we make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nicky Ballou, and today I've got a very special guest here. Today's guest is a man who's been doing the work of men, like delving deeply into what it is to be a strong masculine man for nearly 30 years. He's got his own practice where, among other folks, he coaches men on being the best version of themselves in life, in business, in relationship. And I've had the privilege of doing this work with this man for well over a decade. Welcome to the show, Steve Richmond. Hello, Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Ballou. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Likewise, my friend. So one of the things that I'm very excited to talk to you about is I want to talk to you about fatherhood, and I want to also talk to you about the stages of manhood, because I think the two of those topics go together very, very well. But before we get into that, why don't you tell everybody your backstory, your journey as a man, and what's brought you to where you are here today and kind of qualifies you to be able to be spouting off and giving your advice to other men?
Aside from having done just about everything wrong in my first marriage, I got married young. Probably didn't marry the right woman. We weren't as compatible as we thought when we were in love, so to speak. And I was way too emotional. I wasn't the man I needed to be. And she got fed up with that after about 20 years. And we parted company. And around that time is when I started doing men's work and realized that who I was as a man wasn't really going to be a good example for my children, or B, get me much success. And I'm not speaking financial success. I mean, just as a man in general. So I started doing the men's work in 1994, and it's pretty much became a 180-degree shift from where I was headed. And I'm much more at peace with who I am as a man now. Sure, there's still issues with my kids, I'm guessing, just because I wasn't there to raise them every day. I did the best I could under the circumstances, though, and was a father. I was not a friend. And, we have a good relationship now, but I'm sure there's battle scars from being raised in 2 separate homes. And quite happy with my relationship, the way I show up with the men these days. I have this coaching business now. I'm also a instructor in the men's organization I belong to. So yeah, it's all been good.
Awesome. Yeah, I know your story very well because you and I know each other very well. And one of the things that I really believe you personify better than pretty much any other man I've ever met is you personify the sense of quiet masculine confidence. Now, you're a sarcastic fuck, and you make statements that sometimes drive me and the other people around you up the wall. But you know your shit. That's why I'm excited to have you here. Why don't we start off by really having a deep dive discussion about what it is to be a man? What are the stages of manhood?
Okay. Yeah, and I'll try not to get too deep into this, because if we get, there's that fine line. I can explain the 4 stages, but without a long conversation, we really can't get into what they're all about. But the bottom line, and
we got a good long time, so get into it deeply, brother.
We only got about an hour.
You think this is going to be a Joe Rogan 4-hour show, bro? No.
So, and any man listening or watching this can see this. Like when you're a young boy, your father is hopefully usually your hero. You know, this is obviously a generalization for kids who grow up in abusive relationships and stuff like that. It's sadly unfortunate that happens. The general rule, though, is you have that era in life where your dad is your hero. He can do no wrong. My dad's better than your dad, all that kind of stuff. And then around your teenage years, when you start to think you know the answers to life, you kind of start giving your dad the FU, and you don't value his input as much, and you're rebelling to become your own man. Now, sadly, in some men, that FU stage can last until they're 75 or 80 years old because they never get past it. Ideally, as you grow in life and you start to become successful, you kind of begin the adult relationship with your father, if you will, and the last phase being that as you get hopefully into your 60s or 70s, depending on your father's age, you're helping prepare him to go to his maker and have those conversations that you may have never had. I know a couple of years ago my father passed, and he talked about stuff with me in the last year of his life that I had never heard about in my life. And it was that was the blessing of being around him for that, and just preparing him. And and sometimes it's a little humbling for him because that whole joke of I'm taking him to the bathroom now, where he took me to the bathroom 50 odd years ago or 60 odd years ago.
Yeah,
but the ideal. But what tends to happen a lot, especially with all the single parents out there these days, is that FU stage lingers, and it goes too long, and men have a big chip on their shoulder, and they allow that to prevent their own success in life, and that really sucks. And they don't see it. 9 times out of 10, they're walking around with this little FU dad on their left shoulder, and wondering why the hell they can't get ahead. Because blaming him for everything in life rather than taking responsibility. So
there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. My father passed away on February 23rd, 2020. And one of the things I'm so grateful for is I had a chance to talk to him well before that a number of times and tell him that I was proud to be his son and that he did his job well with me and he set me up to win in life. And, Dad had a couple of strokes. He wasn't always all there when we were talking to him. There were times it was heartbreaking for me to see him that way every single time. I should have spent more time with him. Honestly, to my eternal regret, I didn't have it in me to be there for too long at a time, because it broke me up inside to see him that way. It just made me feel this big.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the conversations we had with each other was when I told him, Dad, I'm proud to be your son. You prepared me for life. You showed me how to be a loyal person. You showed me how to be a good friend. You gave me some lessons on how to make sure that I don't go bankrupt. You showed me what a man meant. You taught me in a way that few other men of your generation did for their kids what being a good, honorable, masculine man was. And, I started to get emotional. I started to cry. I said, thank you. I owe you for this. And he started to get emotional and he started to cry. And I had this conversation with him more than once because I wanted to make sure that he heard it from me more than once. And I'll tell you, for me, it was a wonderful thing to have that conversation. Now, did I have everything right with my dad? No. Is there regret? Yeah. Like I said, I wish that I had it in me to spend more time with him when he was here and he was in that space. So I know that he wanted that, but the
Yeah.
pain it caused me was absolutely horrific, and I couldn't do it. I did my best. I even did beyond what I thought my best was. I wish I did more. And my stages of manhood after my father passed, I felt like I was more of a man than I was while he was still alive. I felt I took certain things on that when he was
Mm-hmm.
alive, I wouldn't have taken on. As a small example, in the men's work that you and I do, we get together with the men and we go away on overnights. And I've gone on some overnights that involved, camping trips where you put your tent up. And I've got a pretty big tent. You could stand in it. It's a bit of a tent mansion. And first few times I asked for help, and because I didn't know what I was doing. Where last time I was there, I didn't ask for help. I put that tent up pretty much by myself. Some men came and helped me at the end with a couple of things, but I figured it out by myself. I feel like there's more of the man skills tasks that I'm taking on and doing now. Even if I don't know how to do them, I step in with confidence because that's how my dad was. And I think
Got
that's
it.
important. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I am very blessed. He taught me a ton. Almost, since we're on that topic, I was trained to do everything alone. That I needed to know how to do plumbing and carpentry and all these things. And I'm very, very grateful that my father taught me all those things: canoeing, camping, how to start fires, all that stuff. However, what was missing was doing it with other men and asking for help. And that was the thing that I really got after starting doing the men's work, was that I'm much better when I've got men around me. Even if I know more about what I'm doing, just having those men around me and having those bonding experiences to get our laundry aired about what's going on in life, which I had never done. I had pushed it all down. And unfortunately, in my marriage, as I'm sure my first wife will attest, my only wife, it came out, and it didn't come out nice. And that was perhaps the biggest change in me, is knowing when and where to let my emotions out. And I'm forever grateful for that.
So talk about why it's so important for men to have other men around them to help them grow and mature as men. Why can't you do it alone?
Well, you can't do it alone because, number one, emotionally, you got nowhere to vent. And women are highly emotional beings, and they know how to get their emotions out. It's our job to learn to listen and not fix their problems, but that's a whole other topic. But with men, and especially, it's getting better. It's almost gone too far the other way now, where men are told to, share their emotions with their women. And I don't think that's good either. But in my age, it was that, don't cry, man up, don't be a pussy, just suck it up. And any emotion that you had was just kind of pushed down, pushed down, pushed down. And eventually that's got to come back. You can't just push them down without causing damage long term. And I would do that, and then have a few beer or something, and that's when it gets dangerous. You have a couple of beer, and those emotions start spewing back out, and that's not healthy to do around women. The one thing I've learned in the last 27 years is one word with the wrong inflection can take my lady out for the day. I don't even realize I've done it sometimes until I see the tears in her eyes. But, they're wonderful, amazing beings. And we're like, bulls in china shops with emotions. We'll just bust everything up if we're not careful.
Yeah, I've done that too many
So as
times to
far as,
count.
yeah, yeah. And, you talked a little bit about regrets earlier. And I mean, that's the one thing I regret from my marriage is the times that I lost my shit with my wife. It just, I didn't know any better. And, that was the sad truth. As far as being around men, and it's interesting you would ask that question because I just spent 12 hours, 14 with the drive and everything, with my men on Saturday, the whole tribe of, 20 odd men. And just that energy of being able to be my stupid motherfucking self and tossing shit at each other, comment wise, and just letting loose and not worrying about, how I look in front of people, whether I'm going to upset somebody, just having that freedom. It was exhausting. It was fun, but I was recharged on Sunday because I got that space where I could just be me for, and sometimes it's only for 3 hours at a team meeting or something, but for a whole 12 hours. And I was in fucking pain. My hip was killing me all day, but I was having a blast. And it helped with the pain. And, I felt a whole lot better the next day because I got that energy out with my men. And without even talking about anything that was going wrong in my life, just having that space to be myself and get it all out. It just kind of cleansed the colon of my emotions, if you will.
It's awesome. Bill O'Reilly, who was a top-rated cable news host for decades and now has his own podcast, cited a study which just blew me away. He said in the 80s, the average man in the United States had 3 close friends. Today, he has 1.
Mm-hmm.
1. And 1 out of every 4 men have no friends. Like, you think about that. That's awful. I mean, the very idea of that makes my skin crawl. You got to have friends. You got to have men you can hang out with, you can talk to, you can count on. Before you and I had this interview, I led a Zoom call, and I wasn't even the expert on the call. There was another man on there. He was an expert in cryptocurrency, and a bunch of men are interested in it. And I said, you men want to do a call every couple of weeks with this? And they said, well, we'd actually like to do it every week. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And men want to spend more time. That's great. So it's a beautiful thing when men have other men that are their men that they can count on, that they can rely on, that they can bring their real issues to and not have to sugarcoat it, and that they can receive masculine criticism from. What are your thoughts around that whole issue of masculine criticism? How important it is for a man to be able to receive that without getting all emotional and upset about it?
Well, there's 2 schools of thought on that. One of them is, I think men need to do this with men as well as with women. They need to shut the fuck up and listen, because men, given a space to just talk, will get most of their crap out. They know it's a safe space. They're not going to be judged. They're not going to be criticized. Just to spew their shit, whatever's going on in their life. They're worried about being audited. Their company's not doing well, whatever the fuck it is. That alone can relieve a lot of the stress and pressure. Men have to be careful when they're criticizing masculine. Like, if I tell Nikki Blue that I want to have a book written by a week Wednesday, number one, he might want to tell me that's fucking ridiculous. It's not enough time. But the other thing is, if it is enough
time, how long a book it is. If it's 5 pages, sure, you can do it.
Exactly. But if
it's
say
500, you might need a couple more days.
Exactly. I might need a week. But if that's what I say I want in my life, and he holds me to that and kicks my ass when I'm not doing it, then that kind of masculine criticism is fine. Like, you said, this is what you wanted. What the fuck is going on that you're not pushing yourself? You're not going after it. That is okay. Unfortunately, men get into advice giving and that kind of what they think is masculine relationship. And that's a danger zone, because unless you've experienced it personally, you could fuck a man up royally by giving him advice. And, you should read this book, or you should, book, whatever. Book is maybe not the best example, but this is how you should do it, And two things happen there.
You should go tell your wife to go to hell because she was angry with you last night. Oh, yeah,
that'll work.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Work. Exactly.
Don't ever apologize. I took that advice once when I was married.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. My advice to my client
directly to the breakup of my marriage, not apologizing in that situation.
Yeah. My advice to men is learn to apologize often and quickly, because we screw up often and quickly. But the masculine relationship is great on holding men accountable, helping hold a man. No man can hold a man accountable. You have to do it for yourself. But beware the advice giving, because that is definitely a danger zone. And I see some of these programs that are out there that, even our own, you got to be careful of it. With the men's work we do, is men start giving advice on how you should be. And that's very, very dangerous.
No, this is true. And I appreciate you bringing this up. But my question was very different. It was, what are your thoughts on men who are on the receiving end of masculine criticism? And assuming it's warranted, it's criticism that they need to be on the receiving end of. And what are your thoughts on them taking that rather than becoming all emotional and going into this bit of a hissy fit mode, rather than actually interacting with the criticism and using it for their benefit?
Yeah. Well, if a man's getting emotional and, as you say, having a hissy fit, those men don't have a masculine relationship, because the trust is not there. The respect is not there. The main ingredients, the loyalty, knowing that man has your back. And that's why he's having the conversation with you. If you're getting all emotional and taking it personally, then you don't believe the man has your back. So you don't really have a masculine relationship with him.
What if you're just the kind of man who doesn't trust anybody and can't take any kind of criticism, and he gets all defensive?
Well, then
what if he's a feminized man in that respect? You know what I mean? I'd never go. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because listen, I love my lady dearly, but I think I'm smart enough now to have learned not to criticize her. Right? It's just there's no feminine criticism here. It's just a bad idea, right?
But yeah, I know. Just
I can take a look at you.
Kick you in the gonads and get it over.
Right. I can take a look at you and, as an example, and say to you, like, so Richmond, you know what? Like you say, you want to live till you're 90 and you're still smoking. What the hell's up with that? Man who wants to live till he's 90 ain't dumb enough to smoke. Now, you can either say, fuck you, go to hell, right? Who are you to tell me what I should do or shouldn't do? Or you can go, maybe he's right. I mean, and there's a lot of men that I don't go around giving men that kind of criticism unless I know that they're in a type of relationship with me where it's called for. If it's a man that I know slightly, I'm not going to do it. But if it's a man who's a member of one of my groups and he's paying me to support him in being successful and he's fucking up, I'm going to do it. Right.
Right.
And if he's part of my men's team, I'm definitely going to do it. Right. Like if he, like you said at the beginning, he said he wants to write a book and he said, I want to do it in a week. And it's 500 pages he wants to write in a week. You're going to say, what are you, nuts? Like, get your head screwed on straight, right? Let's talk about what you can realistically do. Even if it's unrealistic, at least it's in the realm of possibility. It's not in the realm of fantasy, right? You want to be able to give that kind of criticism to a man. And I'm just wanted to know your thoughts on how a man ought to be in terms of taking in that sort of criticism.
Well, yeah. I mean, how a man ought to be and how any man is
Two different things. I get it.
Depends on his upbringing. I mean, you in criticizing that man may hit a soft spot in him that nobody's uncovered since he was 7 years old. If a man's getting emotional when, if you're inspecting a man on something he says he wants to do and he starts to get emotional, there's a barrier there that's deeper than the masculine relationship. That's when the listening really has to occur. Because he's taking it personal because of something. We're not experts necessarily in figuring out what it is, but that's where we need to listen, because the man, by getting emotional, is actually 9 times out of 10, when a man is asking for help, he's not asking. And you and I have seen it. A man is in his head. He's not returning phone calls. He's not showing up for team meetings. That's his way of asking for help, because he doesn't know how to deal with shit. And that's the clue. And that's where, in a masculine relationship, I've showed up at a man's house, banged on his door. What the fuck's going on, bro? Well, I don't want to talk to men. Exactly, because you got shit going sideways and you don't know how to deal with it. First way that men ask for help is they disappear.
First way men ask for help is he disappears.
Goes, oh, that's just a man. What's that?
I never heard that before. That's pretty good, actually.
He goes to his cave.
First way a man asks for help is he disappears. That's pretty profound stuff, Mr. Richmond.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, society's made it almost popular. It's like, oh, I'm going to my man cave. The man cave, per se, is a place where men are seeking solace. It's not an entertainment room. That's where they're trying to get the fuck away from everybody. That's one of the things I love about canoeing, that's where I can just take in the world and enjoy life and really process some deep thoughts. And I get to see my kids most times on my canoe trips too. So, but yeah, I mean, if a man's getting emotional, there's more than that issue at heart. If he's obviously taking something personal, or, because we're not experts. If you're grilling a man on something, if I'm doing it and I'm not doing it with love and care, I could be coming from a place of ego myself and rubbing him the wrong fucking way.
Yeah.
So that's why I always advise the best way to have a masculine relationship is listen to what the man's saying, and then, listen to understand first, then ask the questions.
There's a bit of Stephen Covey in what you just shared with us there. Listen to understand first. I mean, one of his 7 habits was seek first to understand, then to be understood.
It's not just the men's weekend that I did to get here. I've read a lot of books, Stephen Covey.
That's actually very good. Listen to understand first, then ask questions. Because if you don't understand and you go in with a preconceived notion, you may do that man and yourself damage. You can certainly do damage to the relationship that you have with that man. That's brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a bit about why, in your opinion, it's currency among men to be a man of your word.
Well, when it's all said and done, that's all we got. Doesn't matter if you had $6 million, somebody's going to get that. It doesn't matter, what you did with your life. You may leave a legacy, but the way, if I'm looked at as a sleazy used car salesman by all the men who know me, my legacy is going to be shit, because I didn't keep my word. I was, cutting deals with them, cutting corners in life, et cetera, et cetera. But if I'm a man who shows up and does what I say I'm going to do, that is going to be respected by other men, because it's probably the hardest thing we do. You know, and with my clients, I talk a lot about the looking good integrity of keeping your word and the personal integrity of keeping your word. Now, if I tell you I'm going to have a book done on Friday, and the only fucking reason I write the book is so that you're not up my ass about having it done, that's my looking good integrity. If I don't tell you I'm going to write a book and I do it by next Friday because it's something that drives me, that's my personal integrity. No. So, and
so
with all the
looking good
men's work
integrity
stuff
versus
out there,
personal integrity. I like that too. Those are two very powerful distinctions.
yeah, because we do it all the time. It's, well, you know, I did this while I slapped it together. We had an example with a artifact. You know, I was concerned giving my best to putting steak, you know, marinating steaks and getting all the groceries and making a really cool chili for the lunch on Saturday. And there was an artifact thing that the context didn't get delivered down to me. It was just a fucking pain in my ass to get her done. But I didn't want to look bad showing up at the event Saturday without the motherfuckers. So we got it done. And, you know, even when we were doing it, it's like, I don't know about you two, man, but my context is just get this fucking thing done. As opposed to my focus was on the food, making sure that these men ate like kings.
Yeah, that's an important context, making sure the men eat like kings. So I run a CEO group, and we did an overnight with the men in that group. There were me and 4 of the men in the group, and then a couple of guests came to the overnight. And I wanted us to eat like kings. And I wasn't even in charge of food. I was in charge of the whole overnight. So I found a man who owns restaurants. And I said, look, man, you take care of the food. Okay. So he owns restaurants. He's really good with food. And then I got another man to help him out. And this man used to own a grocery store. So that man who owned restaurants brought some incredible food, like just went and bought from places that he would buy from when he was getting food out there to his customers that are coming into his restaurants, the restaurant patrons. And the other man, he brought a charcoal barbecue, you know, one of those that's portable. You can take it with you. I mean, it was still a stand-up one, and it was, you know, waist high and all that. But the quality of the food has to be the finest I've ever experienced at a men's overnight. We should explain what a men's overnight is in a moment. But exactly. It was the finest quality we've ever had. He made kebabs on these metal steaks and put them over the barbecue. He had Persian bread, and the kind that's called sangak, which is cooked in a tanur, which is an oven, and there's stones in the flour of the bread, and it's just you bang it up against the wall of the oven and you cook it in there. It is the best bread you've ever tasted in your freaking life. What we did is we took the sangak bread and we grabbed one of these steaks and we just grasped the meat and we pull it off, and you'd have yourself a ready-made sandwich. And it was delicious, man. Just delicious. He did that with chicken. The
one thing I truly loved about working in Kuwait was what you just described.
It was great, right? It was really great. It was just spectacular, I'll tell you. And we did this with chicken marinated in saffron, and saffron. Sorry, in English. In Farsi, we call it saffron. We had kebab kubide, which is kind of the ground beef kebab, and we had salmon. It was delicious, and they made such incredible salads to go with it. I'll tell you, I ate so much and so well. It was great. Just really, really great. My context, and I didn't even do it. I just set other men up to do it, but I knew I wanted great food. So I was going to set it up with men who I knew were going to kick butt, and they did.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing, though. There's a difference. Like, you know, dining with family at Thanksgiving and everything is phenomenal. But there is an energy to eating with men. that you don't get anywhere else. And, one of the men asked me, well, how come you pick T-bone steaks for the weekend? I said, because we got plastic cutlery. Men need to hold these things in their hand. And he's like, what? You don't cut a steak up when you're sitting around with 20 men. You bite into it and rip it. And just that energy. And, the food doesn't have to be really fancy even. Just, there's just something there. Of course, being outside for 12 hours builds the appetite too, but
that helps. That definitely helps.
Yes.
Yeah. And so for the folks listening to this episode, an overnight is an event where men from men's organization get together and go away overnight someplace. And they engage in a bunch of powerful activities, physical activities, fun activities. We do some learning activities, but we also do some food preparation and eating activities, and we all eat like kings. And that's the beauty of an overnight. And that was a wonderful thing that we just experienced. One of the things I've been learning about Mr. Richmond as a result of participating in this work is the importance of not doing it alone, because I've been someone who's done everything by himself. I am now living in tribe, winning in tribe. I read Seth Godin's book, Tribes, on the recommendation of a man I really respect, Patrick France, who's been a guest on my other flagship podcast for my business, The Thought Leader Revolution. And Patrick told me that he grew RAIN, the Real Estate Investment Network. Do you know RAIN? Do you know who they are?
Yep.
I mean, they are the largest real estate investment educational company, bar none, in North America, probably even the world. They put hundreds of thousands of people through their programs. And I asked him, how did you build such a big organization? He said, I built tribes. I don't do it all myself. I have people help me. I have people bought into the vision. I'm like, oh my God, that's how. You mean I don't have to do it all alone? So I just keep going everywhere. And I tell them, I've even been telling you, Richmond, I can't do this alone. I need help. I need your help. Come on my show. Come do this with me. I'm like, that's how it works. When you get people involved, good things happen. Good things happen. This men's organization that we've started, the Sovereign Man Movement, that's about making men masculine again. The power of this organization comes from the fact that there are many men involved and many hands make light work. We've been running these battle-ready initiation programs, which are 8-week programs where for 2 hours, we really give the men that are part of the initiation programs our very best energy and content and brotherhood and masculine power to elevate them so they can become the best, most masculine version of themselves. Now, I've usually filled these, as you know. This time I didn't. There's only one man in there that came from me. I'd say two men in there that came from me out of 8. The rest came from others. It was so great. So great that I didn't do it all. And that's how men become more successful. Like for me, I've learned about this, that building tribes, empowering tribes is how I win. And that's how come I'm winning bigger this year and making more money and all that good stuff. But any man that is interested in being a masculine man needs to have other men around him, and frankly, other men and women around him in his life, and he needs to empower them. He needs to elevate them to help him. Because if you don't let people help you, how the heck are you going to be the best version of you? Nobody wins by themselves at anything.
Well, exactly. And you hit on a point, though, unfortunately, and yeah, I'm getting old, and I've watched the feminization of men creep in more and more and more in the last 30 years. And I was headed down that path, dude. Like, I was going to raise my daughters as if they were just like boys and everything else. And I kind of did this 180 after 1994 and went, whoa, where the hell am I going? And, one of the funny things about doing the men's work is how I became a lover of women because of it. I've heard it called misogynist. I've heard all men's work called, it's toxic masculinity.
That's just some BS some people throwing your way because they don't want men to be up. They want to put men down. They can go to hell.
Understanding that, how magnificent women are was one of the biggest breakthroughs of my life. I had treated my first wife like a man. She was supposed to have the same emotions and bullshit that I did. And no, guess what? I was wrong. but these men who, bless their hearts, women have asked for men to share their feelings. But then when men start to share their feelings, women don't want to hear their feelings because it undermines their security about who he is as a man. And you see it all the time. And so women are trying to be career driven, family oriented, and, it's tearing them apart. And you can see it more and more. But getting these men to a place where they recognize that they're feminized and wanting to become masculine again can sometimes be very difficult because they've been raised that way. And unfortunately, there's too many goddamn single mothers out there. No offense to single mothers. There's too much divorce. And the male input isn't there in the man's upbringing. Or it's shit input, depending on the man. And this is the biggest problem with men these days is we don't know who the fuck we are anymore. And it's getting muddier and muddier. And we need to do two things. We need to give women, as my mentor says, their place at the table because they're taking it. And we need to get back to our men. Because being in relationship with women is one thing. Having all your friends be women is dangerous.
If you're a man or a woman, I'll tell you that right now.
Well, yeah. I do not stop you there. I do not profess to know anything about women and never will. And ironically, in my marriage, I thought I did.
Probably why you're not married. Probably why I'm not married. I thought I understood women. Now, now I know that I have no idea
exactly
what women are really like, how they really think, what makes them tick. I barely know how I tick, and I'm pretty uncomplicated.
Exactly. They know how we tick. We haven't got a goddamn clue how they tick. And but that's the thing, man. You were talking about the masculine criticism of a man. If he's feminized and hasn't developed what is known as a masculine relationship in his life, that's what he thinks the masculine relationship looks like. So he's going to get emotional. Now,
feminized, he can't handle masculine criticism. That's the problem. Right. And he's going to be the kind of man who's going to always be angry at other men and not trust other men and not be able to learn from and grow as a result of having other men be in his life and give him their best. Feminized men are dangerous to themselves and they're dangerous to the world, in my opinion.
Well, exactly. Now, you talk about male criticism. Criticism of any kind, I don't find that great. Supporting a man to get through his shit, definitely. But what is your context of criticism? That to me, I mean, and there again, the reason that barrier kind of came up for me was if a man is with men and getting emotional, that's where he needs to. There's nowhere else other than with my men that I'm really in a safe place to get emotional. Now, I've got a couple of men I can go for a walk and scream my ass off on the phone or something to men. But really, if you're standing in a men's circle and a man's being emotional, where in the fuck else in the world is he supposed to do that? Nowhere.
I don't mind a man being emotional, but I think a man's got to be able to hear what's being brought to him. And if he can't do that without getting all upset that another man is telling him he's not doing something perfectly in his life, and you know what? That's a hard man for you to make a difference for. That's a man that, in my opinion, is going to be difficult to count on. Because if you can't count on him to hear what he needs to hear to become better, then what else can you not count on him for? Show up when you need him to.
If the emotional continues and continues and continues, I would agree. But if it's over the first few times, that may be the barrier that he needs to get through to be able to keep his word.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, we've all been emotional. I've been emotional. There have been times where I don't take criticism. I haven't taken criticism from you. I've gotten emotional. But right now,
I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you
well, there you go. But right now I'm in a space where, I may not agree with your criticism. I may not do anything with it, but I'm going to hear you out. And
yeah,
it's just because, look, I know that as a man, I'm far from perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. The things I thought I'd handled, which I hadn't, I've regressed into inappropriate thought patterns and inappropriate behaviors. And I'm sure I'll do it again.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, one of the reasons I do this work and I have conversations with men like you and I stand in a circle is because I want to be better. And the only way I'm going to be better is if I reveal myself to my men, let them see my pain, my insecurity, my wounds, my warts, and let them give me what they need to give me so I can be stronger when I go out there into the world to do battle. And I can win. I can win for myself. I can win for my family, my woman, my children, my ex-wife, and for the movement I'm creating with Sovereign Man. Because listen, here in Sovereign Man, we believe that men and masculinity are under assault in the world. And there's a lot of men that just haven't got a clue what it is to be a good, honorable, masculine man. And
Unfortunately, you're right.
We want to be a beacon to attract those men, have them be proud of being a man again, have them be proud of being masculine again, understand what it is to be masculine again, and to grow the movement so that we are able to transform the world. And I'm not going to be able to do that by myself. It's a good friend of mine, Ryan Mickler. He's the man who created the Order of Man movement and the Order of Man podcast.
Yep, I know.
And he talks about reclaiming and restoring masculinity. Brilliant phrase. Yep. 10,000 Ryan Micklers would barely make a dent in the global problem we have with masculinity right now. So one sure as heck isn't enough. One Nikki Ballou is not anywhere near enough. But I do know that as long as I do what I do and I bring men like you on the podcast and I keep running events like the Battle Ready programs, we're going to be able to grow inch by inch. And then we got our swag. We got this beautiful swag, like my hat and t-shirts, which, by the way, are available for sale on the sovereignman.ca website. And this is how we spread the word. This is how we get the message out in a big and powerful way.
Yeah. The key to all this, and I know there's the whole wave of toxic masculinity, and I'm hoping it's run its course. However, there's still too many assholes out there that are being weak men, and weak, lesser masculine men are the problem in toxic masculinity. It's not strong masculine men that are the issue. It is the weak ones. And
that is the true definition of toxic masculinity. Because
exactly.
Actually, it's not, there's nothing masculine about it. That's the true definition of toxic maleness. Because there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's an oxymoron. Masculinity is an unadulterated, positive good in the world. But maleness, there's a lot of toxic maleness out there. A ton.
Oh, huge. I mean, honoring women for who they are and celebrating the differences between us. That, I know it rubs some feminists the wrong way, but it's the simple truth. We're different. And the more they why they keep trying to lower the bar to be equal to us, I have no fucking idea. Because women are so superior everywhere else that I get the whole movement started about paychecks. I understand that. And quite frankly, I have a whole opinion on that. It would take another hour. But as far as, masculine men showing up in the world, that is where we actually honor women better, honor children better, and provide better. And it's under attack to be masculine. And it's such bullshit because we are needed desperately.
That's right.
What happens if there's a war and we take all the maleness, as you said, and send them to war?
So they're going to be crushed.
Exactly.
Communist China right now is outlawed effeminate men in TV shows and movies. They are emphasizing manly education for their young boys. And, there are those that say that part of the division in Western culture is being funded by the dirty tricks operations of communist China and formerly communist Russia, because those folks are laughing their asses off at how we're fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's good old Julius Caesar's divide and rule. And when you have people in a society arguing about whether masculinity is a good thing, you're not united fighting the enemy. So in 9/11, the West was united around the idea of we're coming together to defeat this enemy. Ever since then, we've been divided and fighting amongst ourselves. And that, my friends, is what we as a society, we as the way of the light need to understand sooner rather than later, is that it's all about uniting around men are great, women are great, masculinity is awesome, femininity is awesome. And the sooner we get that, better off we're all going to be. And no more of this division crap. We can argue about the margins and the periphery of the type of world and society we want to live in, but those that are fundamentally attacking the very foundations, the way of life that we have built here in the West, they're not our friends. They're paid agents of the other side. And we need to understand that sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
Well, and, it's funny that we were just talking a few minutes ago about listening to understand. What I see going on in the world right now is no one is listening. Everyone has a fucking opinion and they want it heard, but nobody's listening to what is needed.
Amen, brother. Amen. And hey, on that note, we're going to wrap up. So, Steve, how do folks get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you and finding out more about the great work that you do? What's your website? What's your socials?
Okay, so it's therelationshipworkout.com or steverichmond.ca. Either way gets you to the website. You can email me at steve@steverichmond.ca, or I've got Instagram page you can jump on, or the website. And let me know what your issues is. I work with men and women. I work with couples. And I don't give advice. I let you figure out your own things, but I work very intuitively and listen to what's going on.
Well, just full disclosure, I worked with you for a year. And when I came to see you, I had a lot of issues with a former business partner in my current relationship. And frankly, I had a lot of anger toward the world. Don't have those issues with my former business partner. Don't have those issues with my lady. In fact, we had our first fight in 6 months on Friday. We both said, how the heck did that happen? So,
all right, call me after the call.
But it was the first fight in 6 months, which is pretty darn great. Because we used to have 5 of them a week. And my business this year has exploded. And I'm not going to give you all the credit for it, but you deserve a big part of the credit for helping me get there.
I'll take it.
Because of the work that I did with you, I started to understand what it meant to be a masculine man. And I started to be less angry at myself in the world. And I'll tell you, that has helped me attract business more and has helped me allow myself to be helped by other people. So full disclosure, listener, Steve's a great coach. If you're having relationship issues, highly recommend that you have a conversation with this man. Check out his website, check out his socials. He's a good man. And I'm a big fan. We're definitely going to have you back on. Thanks so much for coming today, sharing your wisdom with us. And, I look at you as one of my brothers in the battle to make men masculine again. So,
I should add that the relationship workout is about the relationship first and foremost with self. Then we worry about the relationship.
All relationships begin with self. I think that's
Exactly.
that's something that could be a whole other topic for another 1 to 2 hour podcast.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And a lot of the subject of my book.
Awesome. Well, when your book's ready to be published, call me. We'll have you back on. Let's discuss in a big way. I'm looking forward to reading it. All right. That's a wrap. Take care, bro.
Good stuff, my man.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.